Every war in the last 50 years has one thing in common. Not ideology, not freedom, not democracy, profit. The longest wars are always the most profitable ones. Think about it. World War II lasted 6 years. The War on Terror, over 20. Vietnam, 2 decades. Korea, technically still going. Why do modern wars never end? Because ending a war means ending a revenue stream. The defense industry doesn't make money during peacetime. Generals don't get promoted when there's nobody to fight. Politicians don't get campaign donations when the threat disappears. War is business, and business is booming. Today, we're going to follow the money. We're going to trace every dollar from the taxpayer's pocket to the shareholder's dividend. We're going to expose the architecture of forever wars, why they're designed to never end, who keeps them going, and why your government will never, ever tell you the truth about any of it. By the end of this video, you'll understand why peace is the one outcome nobody in power actually wants. The war machine. In 1961, a 5-star general who had led the Allied forces to victory in World War II sat behind the desk in the Oval Office and gave his final address to the nation. Dwight D. Eisenhower didn't talk about achievements. He gave a warning. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex. He saw it coming, a machine that feeds on conflict, and he was right. The United States defense budget in 1960 was around $48 billion. Today, it exceeds $886 billion. $886 billion. That's not a budget. That's an economy. An economy that employs millions of people, funds thousands of companies, and sustains entire congressional districts. Every senator, every representative who votes for military spending is also voting to keep jobs in their district. The defense industry doesn't just lobby politicians, it employs their voters. That's the genius of the machine. It made itself too big to shut down, too embedded to remove, too profitable to question, but this was only the foundation. What they built on top of it is far worse. No declaration. Here's something most Americans don't know. The United States has not formally declared war since 1942. Not Korea, not Vietnam, not Iraq, not Afghanistan. None of them. Every major conflict, for 80 years, has been undeclared. Why does this matter? Because a formal declaration of war requires congressional approval, public debate, and most importantly, it creates accountability. There's a beginning, clear objectives, and an expected end. But an authorization for use of military force, that's a blank check. The 2001 OMF, passed 3 days after September 11th, has been used to justify military operations in over 20 countries. 20 countries, one authorization. Somalia, Yemen, Syria, Libya, Niger. Places most Americans can't find on a map. And nobody voted on any of it. No debate. No sunset clause. No expiration date. The framers of the Constitution gave Congress the power to declare war precisely because they feared a permanent military state. The executive has no right, in any case, to decide the question, whether there is or is not cause for declaring war. They built a safeguard, and the modern state simply walked around it. But removing accountability was just step one. Follow the money. Let's follow the money. In 2001, Lockheed Martin's stock price was around $40 per share. By 2023, it was over 450. Raytheon went from 25 to over 100. Northrop Grumman from 80 to over 470. War is the best investment on Wall Street. If you had put $10,000 into defense stocks on September 12th, 2001, you'd be sitting on a fortune today. And the people who did exactly that, they're the same people who decide whether wars continue. Now, if this is opening your eyes to how the system really works, hit like and subscribe to keep exposing what they hide. Because what comes next connects all the dots. Former generals sit on the boards of defense contractors. Former defense secretaries become consultants. Former politicians become lobbyists. Generals become executives. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's a publicly documented revolving door. The Pentagon's own Inspector General has reported on it. The Government Accountability Office has flagged it. Nobody stops it because everyone benefits from it. The question isn't whether this corruption exists. It's why we accept it. And that brings us to the most powerful weapon in their arsenal: manufacturing fear. You can't sell a war without a villain, and you can't maintain a war without maintaining the fear. Fear is the fuel that keeps the war machine running. After the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, the defense industry faced an existential crisis. The enemy was gone. Budgets were being cut. The peace dividend was real. Then came September 11th, and suddenly there was a new enemy. An enemy that was everywhere and nowhere. An enemy you couldn't negotiate with, couldn't contain, and most importantly, couldn't definitively defeat. The war on terror was the perfect product, because terror never ends. Think about how the threat level has been managed. Remember the color-coded threat system, conveniently raised before elections, lowered after. Every few months, a new briefing about imminent threats. Every year, a new country added to the target list. Fear sells wars. The media plays its part too. Studies from the University of Pennsylvania showed that coverage of terrorism increased by over 1,000% after 2001, while actual terrorist attacks on American soil decreased. The perception of danger went up. The reality of danger went down. But perception is what drives policy, and policy is what drives spending. The proxy game. If forever wars are the product, proxy wars are the distribution model. Why risk American lives when you can arm someone else to fight for you? The cheapest war is one where someone else does the dying. The CIA has been running this playbook since the 1950s. Guatemala, Iran, Angola, Nicaragua, Afghanistan. Arm the rebels, fund the opposition, provide intelligence, let them fight, and when it's over, sell weapons to whoever wins. In the 1980s, the United States armed the Mujahideen in Afghanistan to fight the Soviets. Those same fighters later formed the Taliban. Blowback. Then the US spent 20 years and over $2 trillion fighting the very people it had armed. And when the US finally withdrew in 2021, the Taliban took over in 11 days. 20 years of war, $2 trillion, zero lasting change. But Lockheed Martin still got paid. Raytheon still got paid. Every bullet, every bomb, every helicopter was a line item on a purchase order. War is a racket. It always has been. Smedley Butler said that in 1935. Almost a century later, the racket has only gotten bigger, and it's about to get even more creative. Privatized combat. There's a reason you stopped seeing body counts on the news, because the bodies aren't soldiers anymore. They are contractors. In 2020, there were more private military contractors in Afghanistan than US troops, more mercenaries than soldiers. Companies like Blackwater, now rebranded as Academy, Din Corp, and Triple Canopy made billions providing security, logistics, and yes, combat services. And here's the critical difference. When a soldier dies, it's a headline. When a contractor dies, it's a statistic buried in a Pentagon report. No flag-draped coffin, no congressional inquiry, no public outrage. Privatization made war invisible to the public, and invisible wars are wars that never end. The contractor model also created a perverse incentive structure. These companies don't profit from peace. They don't profit from efficiency. They profit from duration. The longer the contract, the bigger the payout. A Rand Corporation study found that private contractors were often more expensive than military personnel for the same tasks. But nobody cared because the spending was buried in supplemental appropriations off the main budget, away from public scrutiny. In war, truth is the first casualty. In modern war, accountability is the second. But even contractors need a reason to deploy. Arms pipeline. The United States is the world's largest arms dealer, not by a small margin, by a landslide. In 2022, U.S. arms exports totaled over $205 billion. $205 billion. That's more than the next 10 countries combined. And here's the dirty secret. Many of those weapons end up in conflict zones. Saudi Arabia, one of America's biggest arms customers, used U.S.-made bombs in Yemen, creating what the United Nations called the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Your taxes fund their bombs, but stopping the sales would mean losing billions in contracts. It would mean lost jobs in Texas, in Connecticut, in Virginia. It would mean angry donors and lost elections. So the pipeline stays open. Weapons flow to allies who aren't really allies, to regimes that violate every human right you claim to defend. The weapons you sell today become the threats you fight tomorrow. It's a self-perpetuating cycle. Sell weapons, create instability, use instability to justify more military spending. Repeat. 1. Sell arms to unstable regions. 2. Conflicts escalate with new weapons. 3. Use conflict to justify military budgets. 4. Budgets fund more arms production. This cycle has been running for decades, and it feeds directly into the next mechanism of forever war. Nation building. Destroying a country is profitable, but rebuilding it, that's where the real money is. After invading Iraq in 2003, the US spent over $60 billion on reconstruction contracts. They broke it and then charged you to fix it. Companies like Halliburton, formerly led by Vice President Dick Cheney, received contracts worth over $39 billion. KBR, a Halliburton subsidiary, was awarded no-bid contracts worth billions for everything from building military bases to serving meals to troops. No competitive bidding. No price comparison. Just write the check. And the results? A 2021 study by Brown University's Costs of War project estimated that the total cost of post-9/11 wars exceeded $8 trillion. $8 trillion. That's more than the GDP of every country on Earth except the US and China. Where did that money go? Into schools, hospitals, roads, some. But audits repeatedly found billions in waste, fraud, and abuse. The Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction documented case after case of ghost projects, buildings that were never completed, schools that were never opened, hospitals with no doctors. We were devoid of a fundamental understanding of Afghanistan. We didn't know what we were doing. They didn't need to know. Knowing would have ended the spending. Cyber forever war. Just when you thought the forever war model might be running out of steam, they found a new battlefield. One with no borders, no treaties, and no end in sight. Welcome to the cyber forever war. The US Cyber Command was established in 2009. Since then, cybersecurity spending has exploded from around $7 billion to over $20 billion annually. And here's the beauty of cyber warfare from a profit perspective. There's no victory condition. You can never declare a cyber war won. The threat is constant, invisible, and perpetually evolving. You cannot win a war against an enemy that exists everywhere and nowhere. Every breach justifies more spending. Every hack demands new contracts. Every vulnerability requires new solutions. Infinite threat, infinite budget. Companies like CrowdStrike, Palantir, and Booz Allen Hamilton have seen their valuations soar. The same revolving door that exists in traditional defense now spins in cyber. Former NSA directors join cybersecurity firms. Former intelligence officials become consultants. The forever war has been digitized. And a digital war has one massive advantage for those who profit from it. You'll never see the battlefield. You'll never count the cost. You'll never know when it's over, because it's designed to never be over. And that brings us to the question nobody in Washington wants you to ask. Who stops IT? So who stops the forever war machine? Congress. They're funded by it. The media. They're owned by the same corporations that own defense stocks. General Electric owned NBC while manufacturing jet engines for the military. The people who report on war profit from war. What about the president? Every president since Eisenhower has expanded military operations, regardless of party. Obama, who ran on ending wars, authorized military action in 7 countries. Trump, who promised to bring troops home, increased drone strikes by 432%. Left or right, same war. The machine transcends politics because it transcends elections. It operates on contracts that last decades, on relationships that span generations, on money that flows regardless of who sits in the Oval Office. The real rulers in Washington are invisible and exercise power from behind the scenes. The only force that has ever stopped a forever war is public pressure. Vietnam ended because people took to the streets. The people. Afghanistan ended because the public stopped believing the mission had purpose. The machine is powerful, but it's not invincible. It depends on one thing to survive: your indifference. The moment you start paying attention, asking where the money goes, demanding accountability, the machine starts to stall. That's why they keep you distracted. That's why they keep you afraid. Because an informed public is the only weapon the war machine can't defend against. Let's step back and see the full picture. No formal declarations, so there's no accountability. No end dates, so there's no timeline. Private contractors, so there's no public cost. Arms sales that create the enemies of tomorrow. Reconstruction contracts that reward the destroyers. And now, a digital battlefield with no borders and no finish line. Designed to never end. This isn't a flaw in the system. This is the system. Every dollar spent on a bomb is a dollar not spent on a school. Every year at war is a year not at peace. And every time you look away, the machine grows stronger. Only the dead have seen the end of war. But you don't have to be indifferent. You can follow the money. You can demand answers. You can refuse to be afraid on command. If you made it this far, comment END the racket to prove you see through the game now. Every government lies. The question is, what are they lying about? The truth is out there. You just have to follow the money. Like and subscribe to keep exposing what they don't want you to see.